Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies, and hopefully a few gentlemen as well listening to this amazing podcast. Thank you for having me. And my name is Yulia Stark. I'm the president of the European Women Association, and I'm based in quite rainy Belgium. So those who live in Europe, they know we are not really much blessed with a lot of sunshine in this country. But Belgium is heart of the European Union. Belgium is where a lot of decisions are being made. A lot of gender equality questions are being raised, and probably that influenced me to do what I do. If you would Google me or you go on LinkedIn, you'll find a long history of different initiatives that were aimed towards empowering women in general. And in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, almost 5 years, I've been mainly focusing on the economic empowerment of women. Because at the end, I believe that when women have the financial freedom to do what they want to do, they are actually not only impacting their lives, but they are directly impacting their communities, the children, the education. And I think you can even find a lot of data on how women spend their money. So every time when a woman gets her salary or runs her business, over 80% in Europe and in other growing countries, developing countries, it's up to 91% of that capital goes directly to education, healthcare, and communities. And that's beautiful, isn't it? So empowering women, it's not just because it's good for ROI, and there's so much data behind it, why it's important to invest in women, and I'll come back to it in the next maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But it is actually, it's a social responsibility. It's something that influences our next generations, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. But why European Women Association? Why empowering women? Why is it important? I think all of us have stories, right, that somehow influenced our decisions, influenced our destiny in a way. And I must admit, the reason I believe I do what I do was my mom. And I say was because she passed away last December, so it's quite recent. But her presence in my life, I think is the most beautiful human being I've ever met. She supported every decision of mine. She helped me with children. She helped me with my businesses. And she was there always encouraging to make bold decisions. And I do realize that not every woman, also in our community, has that role model, has that person in her life that encourages her, that supports her, regardless of the decisions you make. And that's why I wanted to create something bigger than myself, than my own community or circle of influence for other women like myself, like mothers who juggle between different projects or jobs and family and husbands. And this is how it was born. I think in my career started actually in investment banking. I'm an investment banker by heart. I love the industry, but maybe you remember in 2008 and 9, financial crisis happened. And that I remember how I took it actually quite personally. When financial crisis happened, I realized I couldn't save my clients. I couldn't save their portfolios, and the banks are not always quite ethical in their way of working. And I remember beginning of 2009 making a decision that, you know what, if I do something, I want to do it with ethics, with honesty, and I need to know that the advice I'm giving is the right one. And at that time, it wasn't possible in the industry I was working, and I decided bluntly to quit the financial sector. And I remember standing with my box in the elevator, and my boss, the CEO at the bank, Stefan, he came to me and said, Yulia, you know what? You are a born entrepreneur. Don't waste your time in a 9-to-5 job. And I really needed that advice because the bank was closing. And although I had another opportunity in the other bank, I literally took the leap and I said, listen, I don't have kids yet. I just have to try. If I don't try, I'll regret it forever. And so in 2009, I made the jump. And many of you probably recognize that when you naively somehow make a decision. And honestly, I ended up working double the hours I was working when I was an employee. But I loved it. I loved because it was fed by freedom. I could work with whom I wanted, where I wanted. And although it was much, much more harder to gain the same money on a monthly basis in the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, I loved every bit of it. And I ended up doing international projects in Ukraine. And you probably now heard a lot what's happening in Ukraine, but it all started in 2013. There was a big revolution in Ukraine, and actually was one of the leading moments to the war right now. But let's not go into politics. But I remember moving to Ukraine at a certain moment, having these big ambitions and missing out a lot on, on quality of life as well, because I was just a young mom, and mothers here will probably recognize that this podcast, it's not easy to make choices, and you miss out a lot when you start your business, when you are going towards that financial freedom. But looking back now, this hardship, these challenges I faced, it helped to build a more resilient me that could be much more valuable to clients that I'm advising right now. So long story short, after doing different international projects, I came back to Brussels. And in 2014, we launched an accelerator program for women. And, you know, probably serendipity, and I don't know how to explain it. The timing was probably right. We were the first program for female founders, and we grew organically. And during this journey, I realize that women, they do need ecosystem that will support them. Women do need access to certain circles of potential clients, but they also need access to finance. And that's the biggest challenge in many, I would say, ecosystem and business ecosystems we've been working in. Access to finance is the biggest challenge. And it doesn't make sense though, because there is, I think the latest McKinsey research showed that investing in women is actually a great investment decision. The ROI is up to 7% higher than with women, than with men, while you invest in women. That the exit strategies are much better, up to 9% more revenue when it comes to the exit strategies. You can exit faster. Women tend to keep teams longer together. And so there is more attraction of talent to this kind of, let's say, startups led by women. So there are so many benefits, not only social, but business-wise, and still we speak about 2 to 3% of VC money going to women. So my biggest, I would say, focus right now is to find ways to provide for women access to finance through business angels or VCs, but also to collaborate with corporations on their leadership programs for women, on team retreats that we organize for corporations, so teams work better together, that the teams are more diverse and understand each other. So I would say it's been an interesting journey of going from investment banking career into this naively journey of being an entrepreneur, setting up these companies called Business Bridge. It still exists, where we build business bridges between countries and facilitate opportunities. And then more focusing on gender, because this is what I faced. It was hard, it was challenging, and I felt alone. And so when you feel that pain, often I think, Gertrude, you spoke about turning pain into gold. I think that was my moment when I realized I need to turn pain into something that can bring value not only to me, but also mainly to others. And this is where European Women Association was born, out of this frustration and pain and need for women to collaborate, for women to refer business opportunities to each other, and then see how we can grow together. And now, because we're more than a European hub, we are a global platform for organizations like accelerators, investors, and governments. And I'm so proud that I can work with governments all over the world and implement their strategy in empowering women economically. And that just makes me happy. And then, of course, working directly with founders, it's challenging sometimes. It's very much hands-on, but when you see the company and the founders grow, it just well, that's why you do it for. So EY is a platform for founders, investors, and governments. So feel free to reach out. There are different ways to integrate with us, but at the end, I think our biggest mission is to empower women economically through different ways.
Wow. Where do I begin to unpack your story? You have had such a interesting life and very, very diverse. So let's start from the beginning. Who you are. I take it you're not originally from Belgium, and correct me if I'm wrong. So, what are your origins? Where did you come from, and how did you end up in Belgium?
So I have this now very famous mix of Russian, Ukrainian that grew up in Belgium. So my mom was Ukrainian, my dad is Russian, and when I was 6 years old, my parents moved to Belgium. So I grew up here. I think the most beautiful city of Belgium, of Europe, is Bruges. It's a UNESCO heritage, beautiful place to grow up in.
Fantastic. So, if we're talking now in DEI language, there is intersectionality at play here in terms of who you are. You're not only an immigrant, but you have two parents who come from two different countries, and your work and life experience has been very, very diverse as well. Starting your career in investment banking and now into entrepreneurship. Just looking at your bio on LinkedIn, I can see you've been in multiple industries as well. So, why is intersectionality so important for people to understand individuals through that lens, do you think? And just explain the term of intersectionality for those people who are listening who might not be aware of what it means.
Well, I would say when it comes to leadership, probably the greatest leaders I've met, again, I'm very careful here, that I've met are those who understand different perspective of the challenge or the situation or the project they're working in. So for me, going through different layers from corporate career into entrepreneurship, and then from entrepreneurship going into the startup ecosystem, that's also a separate way of working. You learn so much. And so for me, going through these layers, although it was quite challenging, and every time you feel you're a newbie, you don't know anything, but just in that immersion in, I remember moving to Ukraine and helping companies, Belgian companies at that time, scale in Eastern Europe, that cultural differences were like massive. The language barrier was there. But building up from scratch, like building the team, being responsible for trade documents, doing the trade, like import and export. I mean, that was the best school you can ever have. Like, you cannot learn these kind of skills in school. And so growing into more advisory role when you work with different industry, because for example, in Eastern Europe, you worked in commodities, but we also worked in IT. And we all know IT talent from Ukraine is quite strong. So running IT projects between West and Eastern Europe was the best, I think, learning curve for me as well. And that led to more startup tech ecosystem where you then end up in a business angel community looking for great startup. But what is a great startup? Like, how do we evaluate when there is not much to evaluate yet? There is maybe an idea, or in best case scenario, an MVP. Like, how do you evaluate that? So learning from the investors, the level of risk of a starting company, the importance of the team. This is something like when you are a freelancer, you work by yourself, you don't often realize the importance of a strong team that will lead you to the next level in your company. So diving into, I would say, dynamics of teams and how you do evaluate, because sometimes you can pivot the business idea or the business plan as long as the team is coachable. So that's the beautiful thing. And then later on, we go more into corporates, because we work with corporations right now as well on their leadership teams. These same challenges you'll face there as well. So this diversity and this journey helped me to be quite good in what I'm doing right now.
Wow. Wow. Now, you are a partner in an organization called eStream, which is helping girls and women's digital and entrepreneurial competencies. Why did you get involved with this, and why do you think it's important in a woman's life?
STEAM is a project that's actually funded by the European Commission, and like every country and every region has certain objectives. And so for Europe, they identify the importance of getting more girls into more technical and mathematical and scientific educational, I would say, streams. And with women entrepreneurs, they realize there is a need for more digitalization and more skills when it comes to blockchain, AI, because the future is now. So if you want to include the 50% of the world's population female into our fast changing, growing economical pace, then you cannot ignore the need for technical upskilling of that population, so girls and women. And so together with Deloitte, we ended up working out a project. It's a 4-year project that we run in 17 European countries, where we collaborate with other women businesswomen associations, but also schools, in bringing these pools together and educating hands-on with role models women on the importance of digital upskilling, so that they are the part of this economical growth. Because if we are missing out on the educational part, then the chances are big that we will continue struggling in fundraising or in scaling up of their businesses.
Mhm. So what then happens to those women who, because of the digital divide, don't get access to technology? As you know, I am from Zimbabwe originally, and in most parts of Africa, there's no electricity, there's no running water. There is a bridge that needs to be gapped to bring women in developing countries up to scratch to the level of their peers in the Western world. What do you think is the solution there?
Oh, this is not something that we can solve by doing workshops or webinars or empowering talks. It goes much more deeper and a more strategical level. This is where we'd love to collaborate on with governments, because at the end, it's their leadership that needs to provide the infrastructure with the right potential collaborations with other, I would say, corporate organizations that will technically invest potentially in the infrastructure, but it needs the guidance of the government. So as long as the leadership is not involved, it's very hard to change, I would say, the real impact. It will be very superficial. So that's why we focus more and more on collaboration with the leadership of the country to make that measurable impact. Otherwise, it stays, as I said, too superficial. It doesn't have the real economical impact that it should and deserves.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about WeGate, the European Gateway for Women's Entrepreneurship. What is that organization about? And again, what is your motivation and drive to be involved there?
Well, WeGate is one of the European initiatives that is there to facilitate, I would say, and do some lobby work as well when it comes to female entrepreneurship in Europe. So WeGate unites other associations like ours on one platform. So it's like a database. It's like a platform where you can meet other business women associations, and they do different research on the data, what happens with women entrepreneurs in Europe. So it's a tool, it's a database that everyone can tap into. I think it's even a free platform. And my role is, more of advisory. I'm one of the founding members, and together we promote initiatives when it comes to also gender lens investments and access to finance.
Fantastic. Now, like I was explaining to you earlier, I am in the world of looking for investors for my first tech startup. Your involvement as an angel investor with WBAF, what got you involved in that, and how can angel investors help female founders get started? It is very, very challenging to go into the VC fundraising world. What is your involvement with that organization, and how are they supporting female entrepreneurs?
So WBF is an ecosystem of business angels in, I think, 90-something countries. They organize a yearly conference, and my involvement is also on the role of the mentorship, sometimes on the role of the investment side when it comes to early stage startups. The reason why it's hard for women to enter, one of the reasons, if I may, is also I've seen too many startups thinking too small. And when it comes to investment, an investor wants to, at least double or quadruple their investment. And if we are very cautious with our business plan, then it's not attractive enough for the investor because the risk is way too high on the early stage. And with VC, it's even more harder because we need to have some traction. We need to have a scalable solution and a scalable product or a service. Most of the time, it's product oriented. And unfortunately, still, we don't get enough women applying on that level. So that's why we now focus also on investment readiness program for female founders, explaining and showing them what are the business models and how does a pitch deck needs to look like so that you are attractive to a potential business angel or a VC. So it's not as black and white. It's not only because of the gender. Women don't have also a right investors network. Men they grew it over the years. They have this beautiful ecosystem of potential investors even before they need an investment. And women somehow tend to and not dive too much into finance. And I'm generalizing right now. I am aware of that. But this is the statistics we have seen. So I would advise to women, if you're struggling with fundraising, first of all, look at your business model. How scalable and big is that? Like, how unique and innovative that is as well, because no investor will invest in something that could be copied tomorrow easily. So on the IP side, and invest in your network, because money needs trust. and it takes time to build that trust. So make sure you already now building relationship with investors, so that when you will need that money, it's just one phone call away, and because you have this warm, trustful relationship.
Oh, I love that. That's absolutely wonderful. Wonderful news. So I'm going to ask you a question. Let's have a little thought experiment. If time was an illusion and I could take you back to the younger you, that young woman who was being inspired by her amazing mother, by the sound of it, your mother was a real key part of who you are,
Yeah.
and give you three nuggets of wisdom. Let's say there's a young woman who's listening to this podcast. What three nuggets of wisdom can you impart, or what would you have wanted to have known before you started this journey?
I think the number one is, as I just said, invest in your network. It's so underestimated by women, the importance of your surrounding. It's often not how amazing your product or service is, it's who you know and who knows you. So invest by giving to the right people, be in the right circles, learn from successful people, because as it said, success leaves clues. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. So the first one is network. Second, surround yourself by successful people that are much better than you are, and look how they think and act and do. You'll be surprised how easy it is, especially when you have this combination of network. And third, probably work less. It's maybe counterintuitive, but I'm a workaholic by nature. My mom was as well. And I wish, I'm sorry. I wish I spent more time with my mom.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because life, I mean, time flies, and before you know, you are 10 years later. Look at the COVID times, like it just flew by, and then and before you know, it's over. And probably that would be the best success. Like, make sure you value family as well, because they won't be there forever.
Yeah, I lost my mom during COVID, so I can feel where you are. I really get it. Time is an illusion, and we think we have time, and the same goes with family, with your kids. Sometimes I feel like I blinked and my three children grew up, and I'm looking at them now and thinking, man, that went so fast. So to those young mothers who are listening, your parents, your children, those investment in the quality relationships, it's absolutely crucial. Wow. So we stand on the shoulders of giants, those women who've come before us, who've imparted their knowledge, their skills, their life experiences to us. And I'm going to teleport you to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And you're sitting on your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, your partner, whoever is there with you at that time. If you could go and have a conversation with the future you, based on how you are living your life and the mission you're on to leave the planet as a better place, what would you say to this wise woman who's leading you to that point?
What I would say to this wise woman, I'll probably ask her for guidance towards most of people of influence and impact. I have learned that real legacy is left by scalability. And that means that I can directly impact few hundreds of lives maybe. And as a business coach, I worked with few thousand of women in the last decade. So I know the impact I had on these lives. But at this stage, I see it bigger. And so I would ask this wise woman to show me the way towards people, organizations, communities through which the impact could be like multiplied 1,000 times at least. And so I work smarter and not harder, because this is what I tend to do. I work, according to my husband, way too hard. So I'd like to be smarter by leveraging more of these kind of impactful, probably people and their circles. And also see that I've managed to find that balance between family and work, because at this time it's a lot of work, a lot of travel, and I'm trying to implement that, my family, my children, into my travel in a way that is supportive for them and not distracting from school. So it's a journey. I'm still learning, but probably that would be the advice I'll ask her.
Fantastic. The reason why I love to end my interview with that question is that a lot of women don't realize that that wise woman already exists within us. And it's that little voice that guides you to turn left and turn right, make a phone call, decide to do something. And we sometimes look outside of ourselves for the guidance, yet it's already there. The fact that you were born with that seed, that passion to want to make a difference, means you've got everything you need to bring it into fruition. So I work with the energy of who I'm becoming. I do it through my prayers, through my meditation. And sometimes if I'm struggling with something, I just go to sleep with the question, what is the next step?
Yeah.
And I wake up with these light bulb moments, or I'll talk to other people. Like you said earlier, success leaves clues. So I have a lot of mentors, I have a lot of coaches, I have a lot of allies who are guiding me along my journey. I don't do it alone. So thank you so much for coming online today and sharing your knowledge with us. I would like to book another interview with you for another podcast that I'm creating for founders, for female founders, where I'm interviewing people in the VC world, in the angel investor world, so that women can be prepared when they meet investors. You know, what are their expectations? What do they need to do before they pitch? So that's going to be a conversation for another day. But
Sure.
thank you so much for being a part of the Diversity Connector community. Thank you for your
so
work.
much. Now, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I think you're doing an amazing job, and it's needed. And you see that how many followers you have is because it's needed. And there are so many beautiful stories out there. So congratulations on what you have achieved in a very short period of time, though. Only the best is coming, probably yet. The bigger things are ahead, and let me know if we can support you somehow.
Fantastic. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is connecting you with some phenomenal people right across the planet. I have got Yulia's website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Please go online and check out this website. Get informed. If you're in Europe or anywhere else in the world, this is a global enterprise, a global ecosystem that is really empowering founders to be connected. Come back again tomorrow when I interview another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks again. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay connected.